Alright, hello people of the internet. So I accidentally forgot to press record at the beginning of this first BroBot section today. Um, so I'm going to do a quick recording of what we did and kind of go through everything again. And if you have any questions at all, literally hit me up anywhere. I'll answer any questions, especially Blender questions. And yeah, any questions at all, especially because this is going to be kind of a quick walkthrough of what we did, just hit me up. And yeah, okay, so to start off, this is a pre-built reference file that I set up. So this is basically 3 different views of BroBot that were created by Jesse. And I just color coded them just to make it easier to know which side you're looking at. So obviously we have blue for the front, green for the sides, and then this orangey red for the back. And all that is saved up in this reference section right up here. So if we're looking at the Blender layout, obviously we have the main viewport right here for your scene. On the right side over here we have the outliner menu. So when we add a new object, for instance, it added it down here, but you can see it adds it to the outliner. If we duplicate it, it duplicates it in the outliner. If we want to just select one thing, then we'll select it there. So yeah, this is the outliner, and then this is the properties menu. And then this has, again, this might look a little intimidating depending on which menu you're in. But these are all just the different settings for Blender. You're only gonna have to worry about maybe like 2 sections, at least for this first part of the video. So we get the viewport, outliner, and the properties window. And then some basic controls for navigation. Let me turn this on. I don't know why that's not showing. One second. Okay. So now while I'm working, you guys should be able to see the buttons I press over here. Let me change that to this 3. Okay. So for navigation, let me make this a little bit bigger. So you have, if you're on Windows, you can use the middle button to orbit. I'm not too sure about Mac. I know we were trying to figure that out. But you can also use this guy up here, like this compass, to orbit around your area. If you press Shift and middle click, you can use that to pan. So you can go orbit, and then if you want to pan, you press Shift. To zoom in and out, you're scrolling with the middle mouse button. Or if you don't have a mouse button, or if you're on a trackpad, you can use these guys up here. So this one's specifically for zooming in and out. You basically just click it and then move in and out to zoom. Same with pan, if you do want to pan. And then you don't have to worry about these 2 guys. So let me bring down this guy. So yeah, as I was saying, this center, these guys are the reference images, and we're basically going to be using them for when creating our objects. So for instance, first thing we want to do is we want to bring in a primitive shape. So when you're working in 3D, most objects you're starting out with a quote-unquote primitive shape. So in Blender we can get there by pressing Shift A, and then this is the add menu, and then you can see under meshes we have planes, cubes, circles, spheres, cones, toruses, all these guys. You don't have to worry about any of these guys yet, but for mesh, we want to go add, go to mesh, and then a cube. And then we're going to start off by making BroBot's head. So the way we're going to do this is, sorry, I'm forgetting some other things to explain. So to grab an object, you want to press G, and then that will let you grab the object. If you want to, after you grab an object, if you want to make it stick to a certain axis, so like right now you can see it's freehand. If you want to move it up on the Z axis, you would press G to grab, and then while it's grabbed, you can press Z to move it on the Z axis. It's the same for the other two axes as well. But yeah, so grab Z to lock, and then bring it up roughly just so it's like just over its face. And then what we'll be doing is, gosh, I'm trying to sum up this whole talk in this one video. But we're gonna do it. Okay, so when working on a mesh, so this is a mesh right here. You want to work in edit mode as often as you can rather than object mode. So you can see that by this up here. You can see we're in object mode currently, and that's basically just like just you have the ability to edit any object in the scene. So like we could take this guy, we can move him here, we could select both of them and move them together, stuff like that. Opposed to edit mode, so we can get there by pressing tab on our keyboards, and then you will see that the viewport changed a little bit where we're able to select certain parts of the mesh. In this case, we're able to select the edges, and once you're in edit mode, this mode that we're in, you can either be in edge edit mode as we are right now, or if you click 1 on your keyboard, you'll go into vertex mode, which you can edit the vertices or vertices. So you can see if you grab this with G again, you can see how you can move just the vertice. Again, if you press 2, you go into edge mode, so you can see you can move just the edge. And then 3 on your keyboard will bring up, or you'll be put into face mode, which again you can control an object by its face. And depending on the object that you're working on, it'll depend on which mode you'll want to be in or which one's more useful. And sometimes it won't matter, sometimes, but most of the time it will matter. But it's something that you kind of pick up on as you go, and becomes like second nature. Okay, so you're in edit mode. Again, you can get there. You can check if you're in edit mode by looking up here and seeing if you're in edit mode or object mode. Again, if you're in object mode, just click tab. And then we are going to go back into our front view. I forgot to explain this in the beginning of the video, but you can edit your views. I think the easiest way is by clicking these points on the compass up here in the top right. So front view for us, if you're using the preparation, the file that I put together for this with the reference files. Excuse me. So X on the compass, you'll get the front and back views, and then Y is you'll get the two side views. So yeah, once you're in front orthographic view and you're in edit mode for the cube, you'll want to press A, which selects everything within the mesh, so everything within our cube here, and then S for scale, and then you'll be able to scale it roughly to where BroBot's face is. So I scaled it down roughly, and then G to grab, and then bring it down, and then we'll scale again, and then this time I'll press Z to specify the Z axis, and then I'll just bring it down roughly to where his face is. You can see here that it's overlapping a little bit on the left, than the right. There's a couple ways we can worry about that, because at least for me personally, and everyone working on models, they have different ways of working. But I like leaving as much zeroed out, like in the center of the scene, as possible. And it's not too important. I think I kind of got sidetracked during the Sunday sermon today, explaining that part. But essentially, the way I'll kind of explain it is, I'm not going to worry too much about this going over the edge, because I know that this square is in the center. And I can see that by clicking on item. You can see its X and Y location are zeroed out. If I do want to fix that, I can come here, select all the reference objects, and just move it over to adjust the reference object rather than adjusting the square itself. If that didn't make any sense, I apologize. And you don't have to worry about it. Honestly, it's just a little tedious, little nitpicky thing for me. But yeah, okay. So anyway, now you got your head. You can check out the side view by clicking the Y in your compass up here. You should see it should be about the same. We can even select these again if we want. Select the reference objects and then select, and then adjust it based onto the model. And again, don't let this part confuse you, because it's really not too important. It's a little nitpicky thing that I do. But you should be at this point where you have your reference images. And I'll click that so they're not selectable. If you want to make your references not selectable, you can click the little pointer icon next to their name in the outliner. So if you're at this point, next what we're going to do is do the top, the little peak of his head. So we'll go back into the front facing view, and actually we'll orbit up a little bit so we can see the top of his head. With the cube selected, we'll press tab again to go back into edit mode. We'll press 3 to make sure we're in face mode. And then we'll click the top of his head, and then the top face of his head should be selected. You can see it by how it highlights here. So you can see like the side. We got the top of the head. Let's go back into the front view mode. And you can see that it's still selected because this white line up here is white and not black. And now what we're going to be doing is extruding it. So it basically creates new faces on top of what we already have. So we'll do this by clicking E, and then it should automatically be locked to the Z axis. If it's not, you can click the Z button to lock it, but it should automatically be locked. And then we're going to bring that up to the tip, to the point of BroBot's head. So if we go back, if we orbit again, you can see how this created 5 new faces up here. So, sorry, this down here was our original cube, and then we brought these guys up here. And then what we're going to be doing with these is go back into front view, or actually select the top of his head, go back into front view, press M, which is the merge command, and then we're going to merge at center. So it'll merge all those points at the center of them, as the name explains. And okay. Okay, and now we're going to continue on with the rest of his body. So at any point, if you're in a view that doesn't look familiar, so like for right here, we're in, I was going into wireframe mode to select those objects that were, so if I want to select the face back there, I have that option in wireframe mode. So that's why I went into that. I just want to, probably explaining too much or rambling a little bit. But if you want to get back into the regular mode, you just press Z while you have nothing selected, and then it brings up this context menu, and then you can either you'll want to go into a solid mode, which is on the, so you just press Z and then move your cursor to the right, and then it'll go into solid mode. And then you have the other modes you can see too. So wireframe is good depending on what you're doing in the model. Rendering is obviously for rendering, and then material preview we'll be using more later once we add some materials onto this guy. But continuing on from the solid view, we get the top part of his head. Now we can continue down with the neck. So we have that guy selected. We'll click the X to go back into front view. And then similar with the top, we're going to bring this guy down. So E to extrude. It should automatically be locked, but if it's not, you can click Z on your keyboard. We'll bring it down to its neck, and then since its neck is uniform all around, like this distance right here, with just the bottom face selected, if we scale down to that distance, it's scaling in all directions, so you can see that the neck was also adjusted there. I just had to make a quick little adjustment to the reference. So now you can see that we have the head, and we're basically just going to continue this process. So we still have that bottom face selected, and we're just basically going to continue this process. I guess actually we're going to continue it until right here, because then we got these guys to worry about, which we're actually not going to worry about yet. So what we're going to be doing here is basically just going to be extruding again down past those areas. This will be parts of the mesh that I'll hide behind the next part of this video. So what you want to do here is, again, just make sure that that bottom face is selected, and then you're going to press I on your keyboard, and then this brings in the inset option. So we'll be doing this basically just to have mesh there that we can work around later on when we want to bring in those more organic tube sections of his torso. So you can basically eye this to the size you want, maybe like bring it in about that much, just enough where you can hide where it can hide behind these objects that we'll bring in later. And again, with that selected, extrude down. You could, if you want, go out to the, actually no, maybe we'll do that. So scale it a little bit to bring it to the size of the bottom section, and then same as with the top, with the E to extrude, just bring it down to the next line, scale it since it's all uniform, and then for the bottom part, E again to extrude, and then M, merge at center. And as long as you have that bottom part selected, it should be just like that. So if you're able to follow along, you should have this part of BroBot set up right now, which is, again, basically just like the same process over and over again, just extruding and scaling, and then checking it up against the reference. So you can see that the sides should also line up because of how his shapes are uniform around his whole body. Okay, so we get that first part. I don't think I missed anything that I missed from the call, but I might have. So again, I'll say it again. If you guys have any questions at all, just let me know. Hit me up anywhere, and I'll be happy to help. Okay. So the next part of this, let's add these ribbed torso part of BroBot. So to do this, I think with everything with modeling, there's an infinite amount of ways to model anything that you're trying to model, right down to placing each individual vertex if you wanted to model that way. and depending on the type of model someone's building, depending on how their experience with 3D modeling, depending on a bunch of things, they'll have like different ways of going about different parts of the model making process. And creating these ribs, these torso ribs, was actually something I've been trying to think about the past couple of days of the best way to do this in this video. And this by no means is the best way to do it. It's just a way to do it, and I think a way that's a little bit easier to explain, and it also shows another part of Blender, which is curves, because curves are very useful when 3D modeling. But because I like to make things really confusing, we're going to start our cube off as a mesh. So I did that again by going to Shift A to go into the Add menu. You can see that we have the curve option here, but we're going to be cheating a little bit and starting off with the mesh. So go to Mesh, and then go to a plane, which we'll add here. And then if you click the / button on your keyboard, it focuses on whatever object you have selected. So this guy, yeah. So again, select the plane, press / to go into the object, or to go into focus mode, and then click tab to go into edit mode, and then click 1 to go into vertice mode. So we'll do that again just to explain it. Click it, / tab 1, and then we're good, and then we're there. Next you want to select the 4 edges, or the 4 vertices in the plane, and then to bevel a single vertex like this, you have to, the shortcut is Control-Shift-B, and then you'll be able to move your mouse, and then it'll create these cuts in the corners of the plane. And then if you're using a mouse with a scroll wheel, you can scroll up on it to add vertices. Don't go too crazy, because I mean you're not gonna go too crazy with this, but when adding vertices in general with a 3D model, you want to make sure you're not going too crazy, because the more vertices you add, the more work your computer has to do to calculate everything. So yeah, I know Jesse didn't have a scroll wheel, or he was on a laptop. So if you don't have a scroll wheel, you press Shift B, it goes into here. You can adjust it to about where you want it. So you'll say there. And then you have this little bevel menu right here that's covered by my screen cap. But here you're able to edit the width of that bevel, and then the segment. So we'll throw like 6 in here, and maybe we'll make the width, I mean, we're just eyeing this part. I'll make it like 0.5. And then we'll press / back to go back into the full view mode. So now we got this little tutu thing for BroBot. We'll go back into front facing view. Actually, sorry, before we do that, with this selected, you want to right click and then go to convert to curve. Another way to do that, or to do any of these shortcuts actually, if you press F3 on your computer, or the function key and then F3, you'll be able to search for any command that we're using here. So for instance, right here we want to convert to a curve, so you can see that here. But it's the same with any operation that we use. So for instance, like bevel, if you want to bevel something, well, we can't do it in this mode, but you can find all your operations in that window just by pressing F3 on your keyboard. So right, we're gonna go back, we're gonna convert this guy to a curve, and then go into edit mode by pressing tab. So when you're in edit mode for a curve, you don't have to worry about the different 1, 2, 3 face select, edge select. You don't have to worry about all those. It's basically just one version for this. So you have your curve, you press tab, you're in edit mode, you're good. I feel like I explained that a little too much. Okay. So you have your curve. You want to come over to the properties window down here in the bottom right, and then you have this data section, which is right above material, second to the bottom, and then inside that window you have the geometry drop down, and then within there you have the bevel. So this gets a little confusing because it's kind of two different ways of using the term bevel in this video. But in this case, you're basically extruding the curve based on an object. In this case, it's a circle. Is the default. So if you bring up the depth in bevel, it'll create like this tube area. Okay. So once you have this little hula hoop, or rounded square hula hoop around BroBot, you basically want to take all these edges while in edit mode, and then scale it. And actually, let's bring the depth around. So it's a lot of like fine tuning things. So if we bring this guy here, we'll adjust the bevel to be slightly over the reference, and then select all, and then scale down, and scale it down to bring it to size. Actually, leave it there for now. And then back into the front facing view, you can right click it and then change it to smooth shading by clicking auto smooth shading. And then, so this is the reason we created it this way, because we could have created it through the mesh itself. But you can see it still needs a little bit more adjusting here. And working this way with the curves, it makes it non-destructive, so we can go back in later, adjust things as we want them. It does create a separate object from the original mesh, but that's not an issue, depending on how you're working, but it's not going to be an issue for us. So this guy actually does need to come in a little bit. And we do get an issue with some of those corners, which might not be the funnest thing to I think for right now we're going to bring this guy out a little and the back guy out a little. And again, this is more just slight adjustments. So once you have these guys set, it's something that you can like go in later, or go in once they're established in the model, and then make the adjustments. And make sure when you are adjusting the scale of it, make sure you are in edit mode. Because you can see if you're not in edit mode, it does not work the same. I mean, not just because of that, but because gosh, I wish I had the recording from the whole session earlier. But make sure you're in edit mode, because if you're in object mode, then it's scaling it more based on the, like, even if we move this to the center, you can see if we scale it, the bevelness isn't changing. Where it's scaling the object as a whole, rather than if we were in edit mode with everything selected, scaling, you can see it just adjusts the size rather than the thickness of it. That's what I was trying to explain. But yeah. So we'll come back later and we'll make some edits to these guys. But the one other thing we did in today's section was we also put a bevel on the BroBot model itself, or on this part of the model. So the way we did that was, again, it was a non-destructive workflow. So if you come back here to the properties menu, the wrench is the modifiers tab in Blender. So what the modifiers tab allows you to do is make certain changes to a mesh non-destructively. So for instance, with this one we're going to be using the bevel. So you can see it creates a bevel around the edges that you can then adjust to however you want it. And then if you're working with other modifiers, you can stack them. So like we throw a solidify modifier on there, and then you can see it. Well, it's actually not a great one to show. What could we throw? We really do want to throw an array modifier on it, and then throw a curve. And then this is all a tangent from the actual. This isn't even gonna work the way I want it to, but basically modifiers are just allow you to make adjustments to a mesh in a non-destructive way. So what we're going to be doing with it here is selecting our main body mesh, and also the reason we want to be doing this is when you're making a model like this, especially like a hard surface model, when edges meet, they have this infinitely sharp edge that you would never have in the real world. Like even if you take like the most perfectly machined piece of stainless steel, if you go in close enough, you're gonna see some roundness on the edges, just because of the, I don't know, physics or something. I don't know, science. I'm not a scientist. I'm a 3D modeler. But everything in the world has those edges around their edges, which make it look more realistic. So to do this, we'll just quickly add a bevel modifier onto this. You can see it's up really high, so we want to adjust it maybe to 0.03, and then change the segments to like 4, maybe 5. And actually, let's change the amount to 0.01, maybe even a little bit lower, 0.005. And at this point, this is kind of like up to you and up to preference. I like going a little bit thinner, so like maybe I'll even go to like 0.003, just to give this a little bit of an edge on BroBot's edges over here. And then you can also make those edges rounded, or so you don't, I don't know if you guys can see these, but you can see like where the hard edges are. You can adjust that by shade auto smooth, and then it will automatically shade those to be rounded rather than the hard surfaces. So yeah, I hope this is where we left off today. There are some things that I'm going to be editing, but yeah, so this is where we left off. Feel free to like mess around from here, and yeah, if you guys have any questions at all, again, I hope this video was good because it's kind of a quick 30-minute cover of a 2-hour call today. But yeah, if you guys have any questions at all, reach out. We're gonna be doing another session in a couple weeks. I'll give you a little preview of what I was messing with. So I'm not sure if we're going in this direction. We'll have to see. Where did it go? We'll see if we're gonna go in with this direction. Let me go back here actually. So I think in the next section, once we get the arms and stuff, we'll be getting into texturing next, which I think it'll be really fun to mess with this, like a pearlescent material for BroBot, since his colors do seem to change pretty frequently. Again, this is just a preview for the next episode, next fucking Sunday sermon. But we'll be messing around with obviously making the arms and legs, and then start to mess with texturing, which will be a lot of fun, I think, because you can really get creative with, especially a pearlescent material like this, and someone like BroBot, who you can really get creative with the materials and the colors and stuff. So yeah, I hope this video kind of showed you guys something. And again, hit me up if you guys have any questions at all.